Hello and welcome to CEAZOR's Snack Sandwich. Today we're going to take a look at Tetu or Tetu, okay, Tetu. Anyhow, this is a pretty interesting project. It came on my radar recently because it's been out for a little while on Polygon, but it's recently got launched on Phantom and they're starting to build up in Phantom. So there are going to be some changes to things as the numbers that you see when you look through this. But I'll explain to you the system that's running on Polygon anyways, so that you can kind of get a good idea of what's going to happen and what's fully going to be deployed on Phantom when the TVL increases high enough and so forth. Okay. So basically there are two major features here. They have these earn, which is kind of like Volt, right? Like yield aggregating Volt with both LP aggregator compounders and single stakers and stuff like that. So, kind of like Beefy, if you will. However, they do have some governance tokens emissions on top of it. And they also have a swap as well, which is quite interesting, okay? So in order to explain the differences here between other vaults, I'm going to swing over to their docs and show you the flowchart they have there and explain things there. Okay, so here is the flowchart of the vaults and how the vaults work for the most part, okay? And it's pretty interesting. I like this idea. I think it's clever and can be pretty powerful. Anyhow, so let's go through it, okay? So you have an investor and they stick their asset into the vault. So it could be a single staker like the one I showed you already. Like here we have Dollar, but there's quite a few. Like you can go down and search through and find them, right? Basically they're Scream, like folding compounders, right? And then they have LPs as well. So you stick your token inside the vault, and then the vault uses the strategies to produce yield, right? So they send it out just basically the same as most yield aggregators, right? So they send it out into DeFi somewhere, and they use that token, whether it be USDC or whether it be the different strategies, like the LP strategy or the folding on the lenders. And then they have this special one here where they actually use Aave to borrow Mai and then put the Mai into the balancer pool and harvest the rewards and so forth. But this is on Polygon anyways. So they have these simple strategies where they take the token and they stick it into the farm and then they farm the reward token. Now, instead of just compounding the whole reward token into the underlying asset, like most vaults, they have this other mechanism here where they take the reward token, and they take some percentage of the reward token and they use it for buybacks. So they buy their governance token with that percentage of the reward. So maybe it's 10%, let's say 10%. So 90% of the reward token is used to compound the token inside the strategy. Now, like I said, the 90%, I'll show you on the site in a second that 90% can be different depending on vault to vault, and it can also change over time. So they take the rest of it, maybe the 10% of that token, and they sell that token for Tetu or Tetu, right? And then they use like almost half, 45% of that selling to add to the protocol owned liquidity of USDC and Tetu or whatever it is happens to be that they're aiming to provide liquidity to and to deepen that liquidity. And the other one they supply to these XT2 holders. So what does this mean? So they take the T2 and they stake it into XT2, and then they give this XT2 back to the reward to the vault holders. So they supply them to the vault holders. So this XT2 is kind of like a compounding strategy in itself, just like XSushi and so forth, right? They're taking the fees and using it to buy back the tokens and add it to the XT2, and they add the XT2 tokens that are produced from depositing T2 in here and give those to the vault holders. So when you're an investor and you withdraw, then you will get back your original asset compounded. Plus you'll get some XT2 back as well, okay? Now they have an extra 10% here, and they're going to use this for what they call the investment fund. Now XT2 holders or the governance holders, they can kind of control what this fund does. But the ultimate goal is that they want to be able to use this fund to actually invest in real world things like real estate, like special metals or rare metals or whatever, stocks, equities, commodities, stuff like this. They want to try to use this to link the real world, or let's call it, let's call it the real world assets to DeFi in this sense. So use this to invest in real world things. However, I think for the most part, it's going to be invested in more cryptocurrencies of different sorts for the time being. Okay. So that's pretty much how the vault system works. It's pretty interesting. I think it's pretty cool. There is some things that are a little bit different, but some more things you need to keep in mind that this profit sharing vault, when these XT2s come into the vault, it has a special vesting schedule. So in order to get your full amount of your bonus rewards, they call them bonus rewards. Like you can think of this as like protocol fee, right? They're going to take this out as protocol fee, and instead of just keeping the protocol fee, they're going to split it up as such, right? Now, this is kind of like a boost on your reward that you should be getting because of the normal compounding strategy across the top, right? So this boost reward has a vesting kind of schedule on it of, I think it's 28 days or 4 weeks, right? So after 4 weeks, you will be fully vested, and then you can withdraw and get the full rewards. And you can see it in like when you're in the UI and you're like, oh, I have 0 days left. That means I can pull out all my XT2 at once. Or, I've got some days left and I have to wait in order to get my XT2, okay? So that pretty much covers the vault strategies. In a general overview, if you want to know better, come inside, read the whole docs. It's pretty informative. And now there's this Tetu swap, which is also quite interesting, okay? So as you can see, they have Spooky swap LPs and they have Tetu swap LPs, and there's like a Tetu swap here at the top, right? And so when you supply liquidity to these Tetu swaps, right? Like let's say you wanted to zap in here, you would just approve. Oh, I guess I can approve it. So as you can see, I currently have 0 of these tokens, but maybe I wanted to zap in. I could use the zap feature. I could choose the token that I have. Basically, it's going to probably be like one of the tokens from this LP, right? And then I can zap in and it'll, automatically swap this token for the share that needs to do that token, make the LP, and then deposit the LP into this vault. Now, what is the vault going to do with this? It's going to use these assets in the other vaults. So let's go back. So it's going to take these assets and place them into other strategies or other vaults, right? But what makes this special and interesting is that it's also supplying liquidity to these swaps. So if you come here to make a swap, let's say I wanted to swap USDC for CRV, right? Oops. CRV. If I wanted to make this swap, because I'm on the T2 swap, it's going to actually pull the required liquidity out of the strategy, make the swap, and then put the liquidity back into the strategies, which is quite interesting. So there are a few more things that are important to keep in mind. Like you have all these tokens over here that are, this is the XT2 and the T2 rewards. It's showing you kind of basically what the rewards are, your balance and stuff. But here, let's click on this little calculator and we can see a pull up of this specific vault here. And as you can see, this vault has 99% profit auto compound of the underlying asset. So currently, the rewards that they get from Spooky Swap are 99% auto compounded into this LP. So it's almost like a normal one. So it's basically has a 1% fee, right? But then that fee is split, as per that flowchart, as per this flowchart down here, right? So that's not too bad. So you're going to get probably like half of that 1% that's taken out and given back to you with that vesting schedule, and the rest is providing liquidity and going to this investment fund. And then there's one more thing. So as you can see, this one has 99. And if I go to another one, let's try that single staking vault one. Yeah, this one here. As you can see, this one's 90. So 5% of it's taken, 10% of it's taken and used to do that buyback system. And as you can see, some of them are given as T2 rewards, and some are given as XT2 rewards, and some are given as some portion of both, right? Now this one doesn't have anything, but it's possible to have like incentivization and so forth. So they basically gonna use some emissions of the T2 token to incentivize certain vaults in order to like probably boost the LP. Like they obviously want people to put liquidity into their T2 swap, right? So that they their Tetu swap LPs are more stable and more in depth, so they can provide less slippage to larger trades, right? And then be utilized throughout, the DEX aggregators and so forth. So I think this is pretty interesting. I think it's a pretty cool project. I like that it's trying some new stuff, and this makes me feel pretty good. It's like fully audited by 3 pretty well-renowned auditors, and they do have a full bug bounty program on Immunify, which is quite nice. So they put in the time to do this properly and get it done correctly. Now the APYs that you see here are pretty exuberant right now, but as you can see, the TVL is quite low. So keep that in mind, that this TVL is kind of being, it's being mostly done with like this T2 token, and as soon as TVL increases in these vaults, this APY will go down substantially, and you're probably looking at something more like a normal aggregator vault on Phantom, until they start doing that interesting buyback system where they're buying back the T2 token and giving you the XT2. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Come and check it out, and thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.